Something is very different in this environment. Usually when prices go up, the altcoins tend to go up more, Ethereum tends to go up more, but in the recent rally from 16k all the way to 70k, we actually saw Bitcoin outperforming. Now why is that? Is all hope for the altcoins lost? At what point in time might we see altcoins outperform again? Let's have a look at some data most people are not considering. So check this out. This is the Bitcoin dominance chart historically. It bottomed in September of 2022 when 39% of all of crypto was Bitcoin. The majority of crypto was not Bitcoin. But since September of 2022, the importance of Bitcoin, relatively speaking, rose. And it even rose just recently after the Ethereum ETF approval. What's going on here? This rise in Bitcoin dominance is very unusual when we look at the price development at the same time. So the vertical lines indicate the same point in time, September of 2022. Bitcoin rallied very nicely from 20k to now more than 60k. And usually, again, one would expect that the riskier coins would appreciate more in a bullish environment. So the standard thinking is that altcoins are pretty much a levered bet on crypto, right? When crypto as a whole is going up, then the small altcoins should go up more and vice versa. But they didn't go up more in this rally. And if we actually look a bit closer, this is not unheard of whatsoever. We have seen this before. Let's zoom out. Check this out. The period from January 2018 to January 2021. So a 3-year period where Bitcoin dominance pretty much doubled. So we are not looking at the recent increase. We are looking at the rally from 2018 to 2021. Now what happened in January of 2018? Here is what happened. A year-long crypto rally stopped. It was the beginning of a bear market that saw Bitcoin drop by more than 80%. Now this is intuitive, right? When we are in a bear market, the altcoins should be going down more than Bitcoin. Thus, Bitcoin as the safest of the cryptocurrencies should gain relevance, relatively speaking, within crypto. So Bitcoin was crashing, but the rest of crypto was crashing even more. Thus, Bitcoin dominance tended to go up. Now, when did that turn around again? When did Bitcoin dominance actually crash? When did we see, in other words, the altcoins rallying so much? It happened here in January of 2021. And that is over here, the second line of this chart. It was when Bitcoin was at 40,000 already. So subsequently, Bitcoin didn't rally that much anymore, but the altcoins did. Now here's the thing that's so counterintuitive. We have seen Bitcoin's dominance rise in this entire 3-year period. Bitcoin dominance tended to go up, but Bitcoin's price first crashed and then recovered. So the Bitcoin dominance rising when Bitcoin crashes makes a lot of sense. But why did the Bitcoin dominance also rise from December of 2018 to December of 2020? Why did Bitcoin dominance continue to increase? I believe it's because the narrative that altcoins are simply just a levered bet on Bitcoin is wrong. I believe the altcoins tend to outperform when most people have already made a lot of money in Bitcoin and when people think that the upside potential of Bitcoin isn't that large anymore. In other words, people that get into crypto want to get the multiple X returns, right? When you put in $1 into Bitcoin or into an altcoin, you want to get out with $5, not with $1.20. And because crypto as a whole is inherently that risky, the return expectations have to be adjusted. They have to be very high as well. In other words, what I believe is happening is the following. When the altcoins are crashing or when crypto is crashing, Bitcoin tends to crash less. That makes all sense. But the recovery also tends to favor Bitcoin. When Bitcoin is still very low, relatively speaking, when it had already crashed by 70 or 80%, then the risk to reward for Bitcoin is relatively good. Then we can make a multiple X return on Bitcoin and not be too worried about it. We can buy Bitcoin in a bear market because Bitcoin is very likely going to recover a few years from now in that bear market. You don't have to time Bitcoin perfectly. That's different for the altcoins, right? When you buy an altcoin in in a bear market and you don't time it perfectly, you might still lose 90%. And your altcoin might never recover because maybe token inflation is too high. Maybe a lot of new tokens of that altcoin hit the market every year. So an altcoin doesn't necessarily have to recover, right? It can be new altcoins that dominate the next bull run. But Bitcoin tends to recover. So buying Bitcoin in a bear market is less risky. And so this is what I believe is going on. Bitcoin tends to lose less in a bear market, and it also tends to recover earlier than altcoins in a recovery from a bear market. However, once we are at the end stages of a bull market, once we have already recovered, that's the time for the altcoins, in my opinion. Again, it's the charts that speak the same story. Bitcoin dominance tended to rise until January of 2021. And at that point, we already saw Bitcoin doing more than a 10x from its bottom in terms of US dollars. Only after we've already made so much money from that bear market. Only after people looked for the next Bitcoin. And when there wasn't that much more upside, that's when Bitcoin dominance crashed. That's when the altcoins outperformed. And so what we are currently seeing with this slowly increasing Bitcoin dominance, I believe that's an expression that the market in aggregate is still somewhat risk off. I know this sounds pretty controversial, right? Most of the tokens that are traded, say on Solana, are meme coins, and a lot of action happens on meme coins. And usually when there's a lot of meme coin trading, we tend to be at the end of something. But in aggregate, when we look at the altcoin dominance, that tends to go down. I mean, just have a look at this. Most altcoins in the last week did rather poorly. There are a few altcoins that do very, very well, but this is here 100 altcoins that are shown. And that's during a time frame when Bitcoin pretty much just went sideways. So Bitcoin didn't gain anything, Bitcoin didn't lose anything, but most altcoins did lose. Just a few altcoins outperformed. And so I believe there's only two ways to play the game: a riskier way and a less risky way. The risky way is to try to find those few outperformers, right? To try to bet heavily on the outperformers and still make money in a market that's not expanding that quickly anymore. You can't just have a diversified portfolio of altcoins because then you're getting wrecked. You have to have very concentrated bets on a few altcoins, and you have to be right. This can make money, but it is a risky proposition. I like to deploy more money in crypto, right? I don't just bet a few $100s, I bet tens of thousands of dollars, and because of that, I don't want to risk $10,000 on picking the few right altcoins. What I like to do is, instead, I like to bet on the vast majority to underperform. When the Bitcoin dominance continues to rise, then most of those tokens go down, especially relative to Bitcoin. Not necessarily always relative to the US dollar, but definitely relative to Bitcoin. And so then we see charts like this, right? This is a relative valuation chart to Bitcoin of an altcoin that I short. And it's possible to make money from an altcoin underperforming Bitcoin. You do not have to bet on an altcoin going down in US dollars. You can simply bet on an altcoin doing worse than Bitcoin and make money from that difference. And so doesn't it sound easier to just bet on all of those altcoins doing worse, or to bet on this altcoin to continue to go down? I believe that's the easy alpha. That's the easy way to make money. You're not going to double and triple your money in 1 or 2 weeks, but it's an easy way to gain on top of just buying and holding Bitcoin. You can still hold your Bitcoin. You can use this as a collateral, and then you can borrow against that collateral an altcoin that tends to underperform, and then you bet on that altcoin to underperform relative to Bitcoin or Ethereum. That's, I believe, where the money is really made. That's the easy way. If you're handling just play money, if you've just got a few $100s, then feel free to just buy those lottery tickets, right? It's possible there are some winners, and especially if you do a lot of research on Twitter, etc. If you're maybe even an insider, you can make a lot of money with this. If you're not an insider and if you're deploying much more capital, then it does make sense to take somewhat the risk-off approach, right? To bet on odds that are in our favor, right? The odds are not in our favor picking those few altcoins and hope that they gain. The odds are in our favor when we bet on the altcoins to rather do poorer versus Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, there is a caveat to this. It's very likely that you're looking at altcoins that a lot of people are currently talking about anyways, right? When there's a lot of attention on an altcoin, the volatility of that altcoin might be high and it might move in a levered way to Bitcoin and Ethereum. What I'm talking about is not to short, say, dog with head or Slurf or Mu. I'm talking about shorting altcoins most people aren't talking about, as in where there's very low attention, where there's very high token inflation. Volatility is potentially your friend when you buy a token, when you're betting on rising prices. Volatility is your enemy when you're shorting a token, because you can't simply just double and triple down on a short, because the losses are potentially unlimited, right? You better work with stop losses when shorting. If you got something out of this video, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. If you've got Telegram, feel free to join us there as well. The Telegram channel is free. The link is down below. Looking very much forward to seeing you there. Feel free to also check out the premium membership. This is where I share what kind of altcoins, relative valuation charts I am shorting. I'm also sharing various tutorials on how to actually set this up in practice. So if you don't just bet a few $100s, but a few thousand or even tens of thousands of dollars, then this might be worth it for you.